don't forget to manage to the human being. I think that's the biggest thing that I've learned throughout my career. I've had amazing managers who did that, and I've had some managers that didn't. Thing is, I try to lead with the people first mentality. Um, the individuals on your team, I mean, that's going to be what absolutely makes or breaks the entire organization's success. So I really, really try, no matter how busy my calendar looks, no matter travel, like whatever it might be,
Mm.
you've got to be able to manage to the individual, right? I mean, I think that we all have big numbers to hit. It's easy to lose sight of the fact that, these people are not just walking quotas, right? They're
Mm.
human beings with a family and the same stresses you have and everything else. And sure, it's great to like push a team and motivate a team and really try to drive a team to a number.
Mm.
But don't forget to manage to the human being. I think like that's the biggest thing that I've learned throughout my career, right? I've had amazing managers who did that, and I've had some managers that didn't. And I remember my experience as an individual contributor. So I try to take some of the things that I learned from the good, and hopefully that's how people perceive me as a leader.
Mm. That's brilliant. That's such a good answer. Okay, so talk me through now that you've joined a new company and you obviously get into grips with a whole new team. What are the metrics that you're looking for, whether it's tracking performance or just getting to know your sales team?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's a lot of layers to this question, right? I think like super high level, right? Running a sales development team, like the three big things that I care about are, opportunities, pipeline, and revenue source, right? Like that's
Hmm.
the big three. But there's a million other data points that I need to look at and analyze to make sure that like we're executing and hitting those big top line numbers. Everything from as simple as daily, outbound dials and emails and social touches and all that to, conversion rates and, dials to pitches, dials to meetings. So there's just so many layers of data, and I think it's important to kind of take it in stages, right? Like you come into a new organization, like I have, right? I'm 2 weeks in, and all I've done is pull reports and try to get historical data, and like that's all super helpful. It will help me kind of chart a course forward.
Hmm.
But I think at the same time, you can really kind of overwhelm yourself. And I think that at some point there's a lot to be said for having like some just good quality conversations with the people on the team, like understand the needs, understand, if they had I asked every rep on the team when I did a one-on-one with them, if you had a magic wand, like what would you change right now, right? And like
Mm.
some of them had great answers, other ones said they want to make $10 million, but so I'll kind of weed it out and land in the middle. But yeah, I mean, there's just so much data out there and it's amazing. But I think like the biggest thing is understanding that you can't boil the ocean all at once. So
Mhm.
kind of prioritize, start checking boxes and move down the list. And you just cannot drown in data because, one bad day, you can't go and change everything that you're doing, right? So that like
Mm.
historical data, like the trends are so important.
Mm. That's a really great answer. I understand how difficult it could be because there's so many different metrics you can focus on. Can you talk to me about how you align the tactics with the strategies? Is there any metrics? I was going to say matrix. Is there any metrics that help you do that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, when you're talking about an outbound team and you're trying to build and execute on an ABM process, right? I think that there's a lot that you can look at around account prioritization.
Mm.
How many people they're working inside of accounts, right? Like what you don't want to see is an outbound rep working like one person in 50 different accounts, right? You'd
Mm.
rather them work it deep and wide and try to generate good conversations and bring multiple stakeholders to the table. So like I think that that's probably like one of the easy ones, right? Like when you're looking at like how do you take data and make it actionable, right? Like how many of
Mm.
these accounts are you working? How are you prioritizing them? There's a lot of great tools out there that you can use to help with account prioritization, but there has to be some structure. You can't just expect an outbound BDR to come in and make 50 dials and send 100 emails and like meetings to just fall. Like there has to be way more structure to it and prioritization and
Mm.
intent data, and then on top of it, understanding how to leverage it effectively.
Mm. What do you mean by the last bit? Like how do you do that effectively?
Leverage intent data.
Hmm.
So I mean, there's tools that help. Like, one of the tools that I've used is Sixth Sense.
Mhm.
They have all these data points they're analyzing in the background. It basically is able to give the SDR or the manager a view of, who on your target list is, potentially in buying mode, or who is potentially, been to you or your competitors' websites, things like that. So you really, really understand where, you probably have a lot of velocity with a little bit of friction, right? So like
Mhm.
that's something that should be prioritized, right? They're looking at this now. They've done X amount of things that has raised a flag.
Mhm.
Now is the time to go have a genuine conversation.
Okay, that's brilliant. So moving on to the theme, which is linking strategies with tactics. So Joe, you've come into this role. Obviously, the strategic the strategy has been set. What's the first three things that you've done, and why were they so important?
Yeah, I think, the first thing is I just tried to listen and observe, right? I think that like I really wanted to do very little talking and a lot of listening. Um,
Mm,
and then, start to understand like the data points, right? Not even the data points, like the process breakdowns, right?
mm,
Like, where do we need process to be refined here? What are some of like the things that I can do to make the outbound BDR's lives a little bit easier? How do they, how do we set them up for success, right? And I
mm,
think that like I just kind of said it, but like BDRs need to come in and have a repeatable process to understand like, okay, call block here, and social touches here, and review
mm,
this report here. And if they're not able to do that, I think that the day becomes hectic, and before they know it, it's like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. They have to make dials, and then they're simply sitting there dialing to Salesforce versus like making actual outbound dials, to set an appointment. They're just trying to hit a metric.
mm,
So, um, I think that really like process is the biggest thing, and then
mhm,
execution, and then scale, right? So it's 3 steps, right? So build the process, ensure they can effectively execute and they're enabled, um, and then start to scale it, double down on the things that are working.
mm. Really great answer. Okay, so Joe, could you talk me through a time where you feel tactically you've got it wrong, whether it's when you're creating a new process or even when you was trying to scale?
Yeah. At a previous company that I worked with, the team was really, really young as far as like just inception. And
Hmm.
we had tried to run our version of like an ABM outbound play. We didn't have really the right tools. We didn't have the right level of enablement, and like quite frankly, what we did was we really, really hurt production.
Hmm.
So we kind of learned that, hey, like we're maybe not mature enough as an organization to run, the play at this scale. So we backed off of it for a little while. And then eventually down the road, we brought in, more tools, and we had more senior leadership, and we had better alignment across other departments, because like you can't do all this stuff on your own, right? It's not
Mm,
just like me sitting here saying, okay, make these 20 dials, and like, there's a lot that goes into it, right? You've got to be aligned with sales. You have to be aligned with marketing.
mhm,
Um, so like all those pieces were finally in line. And then we were able to really kind of pivot and segment the team. And, we were just probably, I think, 6 or 7 months early the first time we attempted it.
right, okay. That makes a lot of sense. So that's why now, coming into this role, you spoke about doing a lot more listening, seeing where there's like breakdowns of processes.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's a foundation built here for sure.
Hmm.
There's really, really, really strong leadership on both the sales and marketing side. So it's not like I'm coming in and building from scratch like I have in the past, right? My last few roles prior to coming to Upkeep, um, I've really built from zero, right? There's been
Mm,
no SDR or BDR function. That is not the case here, right? I mean, Upkeep's been around for a while, and they've been successful, and people know who they are. So it's a little bit of a different situation. I'm walking into a little more mature of an organization. I'm walking into an organization where I already have alignment with, leaders, right? The CMO, the
mhm.
CRO, like the people I need to really, really partner with to be effective. So, that was an exciting piece about this opportunity for me as well, was um, I'm not the first one in, right? I'm not like,
Mhm.
I mean, I've had roles where I was there before Salesforce. Like, how do you do this without a CRM,
Mm.
So, um, Yeah, it's a little more mature of an organization, but at the same time, you know, we need to scale, right? We're going to
Mhm.
scale. We're going to build this thing up. So yeah, I mean, it's an exciting opportunity.
It is. It sounds really great, anyways. Okay, so Joe, if you were in a room full of revenue leaders, is there a burning question that you would want an answer to?
I don't know if there's one burning question. I think
Mhm.
so. I've been fortunate enough to find myself in that situation several times, right? Especially now that we've gone virtual, there's a lot of, you know, opportunity to do like virtual meetups and whatever it might be. And you're on a call with, 14, 15 other people who, are just like you, VPs of
Mm,
sales, VPs of sales development. And, you know, I get so much from just kind of like listening, right? Or talking through just in general. Hey, like I'm dealing with this right now. Have you ever seen this? And just that collaboration and sharing of information back and forth has been hugely helpful. So,
mm,
there's a couple of forums out there that I'm pretty involved in. So, I get that level of collaboration. And I think I hope that there's times that I give bits and pieces of my experience and knowledge that helps people out as well. But I
mhm,
don't know that I have like one like burning like how do you do XYZ question.
Okay, that's fair. Do you have any pieces of advice for any leaders out there who are thinking about alignment of their strategies and tactics?
Um, I think that the big thing is enablement and communication, right? I think that
Mm,
it's very easy to sit in a room with a bunch of other leaders inside of your organization and say, hey, we're going to go do this. And then you put it down on some process doc. You put a half an hour meeting on the calendar with the sales and sales development team. Here's what we're doing, ready, set, go.
mhm,
And then you just assume it's all going to work. Um, there needs to be a lot more enablement. There needs to be, accountability check-ins. I think that like the biggest thing is, communication, like check
mhm,
in, like make sure that they feel supported and they have an avenue to ask questions.
mm,
I think that like that's where a lot of times like we miss the mark is just kind of roll something out and assume it makes sense to everybody, but everybody perceives things differently. And
mhm,
there's an aggressive click path, right? As you start to move through like an SDR or BDR's day to day, right? They're in four,
mm,
five, six different systems and, click this, click that, update this, update that. Like it just gets overwhelming for them. So
mhm.
it's got to be understandable. It's got to be concise and they have to have an avenue to ask.